Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Brian, and I'm committed to helping people remember who they are, remember our oneness with God. And today's topic is about evil. Where does evil come from? What is it? Do we need to worry about it? Do we need to be scared of it? And what can we do about it? Now, I want to start with the foundation of who we are, because if we're going to understand evil, we have to understand, is it a force in existence that can oppose God? Is it a force in existence that can oppose love? Does it exist as a second power? And so we need to get to our foundation. What is the eternal truth? What is the eternal truth? What is eternal? What has no beginning and no end? What is all powerful, all knowing, all loving, all benevolent? It's God, right? God is the only eternal source. It's one thing, one power, that it exists in eternity, and that's God. Now we must understand that this is the only source. There is only one source, one being that is experiencing everything, because it is everything. If God is the only eternal source of power, that means everything and everyone comes from it and is subject to it. And if that is the case, is there a second eternal power that is capable of combating and opposing God? And certainly, if God is all powerful, but there's a second force that can oppose it, then God wouldn't be all powerful, right? And because God is the only thing that exists in eternity, any second power would have to be created by it and made of it. And therefore, God still has complete power over it. So, if God is the only source and God is love, would God create a second power to, in a way, torture the children of God? That doesn't seem very loving, right? So is evil a second power that exists as a force in the world that can oppose God? And based on just what we know of God's nature, no, there is no second power that can oppose God, because God is the only thing that exists in eternity. It is the only source of power acting anywhere. There are not two powers. I am resting in one power, and that power is love. So then what is evil? And where does it come from? Humanity has been in dark ages for quite a long time, right? We look back at the history of humanity and we see life used to be very brutal. We are fortunate in today's age that we can walk around and we can have whatever beliefs we want, at least in most countries in the world. And you can have whatever beliefs you want, and you can keep to yourself if you'd like to, or you can express them. But we don't walk around worried that someone is going to stone us or burn us at the stake or hang us up on a cross and crucify us for our beliefs, right? At least I'm not worried about that. I hope you're not worried about that. But we live in different times. Thousands of years ago, even 500 years ago, people were worried about expressing themselves and having different beliefs because if the community was afraid of you and your beliefs, they would exile you or kill you, right? So it's clear if we look at human history that we are evolving, we are changing, we are growing. Life is not as barbaric as it once was. And at the same time, our understanding of God and our understanding of ideas of who we are and of love itself continue to evolve with humanity's growing commitment to studying who we are, to our intellect, right? Now, we could certainly get lost in intellect and lost in ideas and forget about being right here and being present with ourselves, and or we can get lost in ego and pride and trying to know too much or thinking we need to know so much. But ultimately, it has served us as more people become educated and believe in their own ability to interpret things and make decisions for themselves and think for themselves. I mean, think, 1,500 years ago, uh, less than 10% of the population was literate. Um, when the church was founded, you could only get your scripture readings from church officials, from priests, and you had to pay priests just to have your sins forgiven and things like that. And you can see how there was a system of control in that. And now we have the ability to think for ourselves and perceive for ourselves. And so no longer is a system really able to control what we believe in unless we give that system our power. If we just blindly follow what they tell us, we are not thinking for ourselves, right? So back in the day, people didn't know who they were. And when we don't know who we are as people, we become superstitious. It's easy for us to fall into fear and magical thinking and things like that. It's easy for us to get lost in the idea of what could happen, of something possibly nefarious or terrible or terrifying happening. And when people get lost in fear, mass hysteria follows, and then insanity ensues. And we see this throughout history. We see it in today's world to some degree still. And when people are in fear, when people are worried about their survival, people will do crazy things. And we know this. We can observe this. We see this all the time. And so, to me, what evil is the product of ignorance. Evil is not some force that is controlling us. Evil is the product of fear. Evil is the product of us not trusting that God is protecting us, that we are divinely protected in our lives. evil is a lack of faith and a lack of understanding. And when people, because, well, let's look at what is evil, right? When we look at evil in the world, we look at actions, right? Someone murders someone, and we say, that's evil. And it certainly is. That is an evil act because there is no love in murder, right? Certainly not intentional, malicious murder based in revenge or trying to get justice in some way. But is that person who committed the murder, are they evil? Or are they delusional? Do they have some messed up story in their head that in some way killing that person was going to somehow fix a situation or somehow make their life better or somehow keep them safe or ensure their survival? And then they take matters into their own hands instead of trusting God, instead of trusting that people are already reaping what they sow. If you have some idea in your head that life would be better for you if someone ceased to exist in your physical reality, and the only way to do that is by killing them, certainly that is an insane perspective, don't you think? Certainly, I have never killed anyone. Have I thought of it? Well, it maybe have crossed my mind, but I would never do it. Because what is that going to solve? And how is that going to make me feel? Certainly, I wouldn't like it if someone murdered me or wanted to murder me. And even though the thought crosses my mind, which is a ridiculous thought when you think about it, that doesn't mean that's who I am or that's what I want. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. And the thought was reflecting perhaps my anger or my feeling of betrayal or what have you. But it's really just a reflection of the way that I'm feeling. And if I'm hurt, if I'm in pain, if I'm suffering, then those thoughts that align with that pain and suffering are going to come up. But they're not the truth unless I choose to believe them, right? Because ultimately, do thoughts and emotions control us? Or are we in charge of how we respond to all thoughts and emotions? Now, part of the evolutionary journey of the soul of a human is learning emotional and spiritual intelligence, is coming to a place where thoughts and emotions don't control us, where we can observe thoughts and emotions and then consciously choose, do I believe that or do I not? So, do I choose to consciously allow, well, here's the thing. If I allow thoughts and emotions to control me, then I'm acting unconsciously. I'm acting without awareness. As where if I can observe thoughts and emotions and then consciously choose, I'm becoming a master of myself. Rather than thoughts and emotions, which are just energies, controlling me, the presence, the awareness that is aware of the thoughts and emotions. If I am allowing those things to control me, I am becoming a victim to those energies. But when I allow those thoughts and emotions to be there, but then I choose how to respond rather than reacting, I respond consciously, suddenly I'm in control of my vessel. I'm in control of my energy field because it's not forcing me into action. And at a lower level of consciousness, people who do evil things or really messed up things, really insane or crazy things, they are in a state where their emotions and thoughts are controlling them because they simply haven't learned yet. So to me, evil is not some force we need to be afraid of. Yes, there are people doing really messed up things in the world, but we have to understand there's 8 billion people, and there are 8 billion individual souls going through their evolutionary journey. And what we must come to understand is that who we are being energetically and what we believe is true for us is what we end up attracting. So, do I walk around afraid of someone who is doing evil things? No, because I'm not attracting them. In fact, I have compassion for them. I have understanding and forgiveness for them because I realize they're at their point in the journey. I realize that my soul was at that point in the journey at some point. I don't know how many lives ago that was, but but I do understand that we're all one. We're all on a journey. Earth, in a way, is a school for souls. We are learning how to love. We are learning how to love like our Creator. And we have to remember, this is the temporary experience. Earth, humanity, is the temporary experience for the soul. Who you are as a soul is immortal. Who you are as a soul is eternal. Even if you go through difficult lessons, understand that your soul came here to learn those lessons. No one's getting murdered by accident. No, there's no soul who comes here expecting to live a more peaceful life and to die maybe peacefully in their sleep when it's time for them. And then they accidentally get murdered at some point. That's not happening, all right? Nobody dies by accident. No soul leaves here before they're meant to leave here. Their soul, your soul, has a plan when it comes here. A plan that was created in alignment with God. You made this plan with God before you came here. This is deep wisdom. This is deep wisdom. Because we have to understand that everything is energy. Even our thoughts and our opinions and our beliefs are energy. And when we look at evil actions in the world, and we judge and we condemn those souls, and we say they're bad, even though they're also just children of God just like you. They're a soul just like you on an evolutionary journey of learning and growing and developing and evolving. When we look at them and we condemn them and we say they're evil, they're bad, they're wrong, or that this shouldn't exist, or that their journey is wrong, and God's plan, we can't trust God's plan because look at all this evil and messed up stuff. We are rejecting God. We are not having faith in God. And at the same time, we're putting out an energy that perpetuates more of what we don't want. When we resist something in our reality, in our world, we create a counterforce of energy that perpetuates more of what we don't want to see. Think about it this way in your own life. If there is something, let's say there's something that your partner or your family member does that greatly annoys you and triggers you and makes you feel upset when they start acting a certain way. When you resist and you get angry and you react, what happens to the situation? It escalates. It amplifies. You make things worse by reacting with more negative energy where a negative energy already exists. But next time they upset you in some way, if you can breathe, take a moment to just observe, hey, I'm only feeling this way because I'm perceiving the situation a certain way. If I can create space between me and my emotion, and I can observe the emotion, and then I can choose to respond differently. Let's say they start acting a certain way and I don't like it. I choose to walk away. Or I choose to accept them as they are right here, and I send them forgiveness and love instead of anger and reaction. What happens to the situation then? It dissolves. There becomes no situation. Instead of something being amplified and an argument or a fight being created, I have chosen to alchemize the situation differently in a way that benefits me. And instead of making their problem my problem, I refuse to make it a problem. Instead, I accept the current moment, and then I actually change the way that I perceive something, and then the situation is different than it was in the past because I made a different choice, because I made a conscious choice, and because I chose love over resistance. The same principle applies in all other areas of our life. And collectively, because we create this idea that evil is some force, and because we resist and we judge and we condemn people who do messed up things, evil things, we perpetuate more of the same because it's all energy, and we are creating a counterforce that amplifies it. We create a counterforce that amplifies it and makes it worse. And this doesn't mean turn a blind eye to things we don't like, but we must come to understand that every single soul that is here is going through the exact experiences that they need for their evolution and their growth. And if we sit here and we judge and we say that God's not in control, if we think that God's not in control, that God isn't allowing these souls to go through the difficult lessons that they came here to learn, if we think we know better, we're saying we know better than God. And that is extremely arrogant and ignorant. And ignorance is only going to create more ignorance. Arrogance is only going to create more arrogance. Anger only creates more anger. Hatred only creates more hatred. Judgment and condemnation only creates more judgment and condemnation. And if you want to live in a more peaceful world, you must become peaceful. If you want more peaceful energy in the world, you must become more peaceful, which means you must become harmonious with the fact that this is a school for souls, that we are all on an evolutionary journey here to know ourselves better, to know God better, to learn and grow and evolve. And we must embrace those ideas, because if we don't, we will continue to create the same cycles over and over and over again that we don't wish to see anymore here. If we want humanity to evolve, we must be the ones to choose our own evolution, because ultimately, you are only in charge of yourself. You are only in charge of your own growth and your own evolution and your own perspective. And if you do not take accountability for the energy that you are putting out and adding to the world, then that just perpetuates more ignorance. If we want to be like our Creator, if we want to live happier lives, we must choose love. And we must choose to stop creating this idea that that evil is some power, that some figure known as the devil has any power over the children of God. That God isn't the only force with any real power in existence, because God is the only thing that exists in eternity. And we are all one with our Creator, and our Creator is love. And our Creator is holding space, holding unconditional love for every single one of its children to go through all of the lessons that they need to go through. And remember, you're already an immortal, eternal soul. Your life will never be cut short. You will always live to the point where you were meant to live here. You will always go through the lessons that you need to go through here. You will always be given what you give. And if you give love and understanding and forgiveness, even in situations where you struggle to understand, if you can at least come back to faith and trust God, rather than resist what is happening in God's perfect universe, if you can do that, your life will get better. Your state of being will be better. You will feel better because you're no longer putting your focus on things that you cannot control. And instead, you are putting your faith in God, and you are being loving to yourself and the rest of God's creation. Every great spiritual master and teacher that has been gifted to humanity has said to follow the golden rule, to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. I love you guys. Choose forgiveness today. Choose acceptance. I promise you will not regret it. Every time you make a choice that aligns with love rather than fear or judgment or ignorance, you're choosing God. And you're choosing the highest good. Much love.